just question that. I told you guys I've had problems with this whole conflict with Ukraine and Russia for quite some time because, again, mainstream media and Hollywood are making it seem like Ukraine has done absolutely nothing wrong. The fact that I'm hearing people who are supposed to be leftists out here defending a Nazi battalion is very problematic to me. Hearing people like Sam Cedar say, well, yeah, they're Nazis, but it's a little bit different. No, Sam, it's not different. Nazis are Nazis, period. And to hear them just take these same talking points from mainstream media because that's what fits the narrative, because that's apparently what tends to be working for their audience, which I would question their audience. That's a problem. And anyone on the left really needs to call that out. The problem is not just the fact of the Nazi battalion in the Ukraine. The problem is also the way that they have been treating people of color in Ukraine. And I want to show you something that came out recently. Now, someone pointed my attention to this. I should not be surprised, but let me go ahead and get to this spot about volunteers in Ukraine. And this is something I wanted to show you guys because I haven't seen too many people talk about this. And so if I have to be that one, I'm going to be that one. So here we go. The Peace Corps. Make this a little bit larger for you. The Peace Corps actually has on their website information about volunteers in Ukraine. Now I'm going to scroll down here. Diversity and inclusion. The Peace Corps seeks to reflect the rich diversity of the U.S. and further bring diverse perspectives and solutions to development issues in the countries we serve. Now it gets to the part where they're talking about Ukraine. Peace Corps Ukraine prioritizes the safety and security for all volunteers at all times in all situations. But in particular, even the Peace Corps was smart enough to point out some of the problems that you may face as a volunteer in Ukraine, as an African American. Listen to this. Possible considerations for African American or Black volunteers. Volunteer voices, people of color. People of color face many challenges living in Ukraine as a Peace Corps volunteer. Again, this is coming from the Peace Corps. However, African Americans will confront far more complicated issues. For modern parts of Ukraine, African Americans are part of the community and day-to-day life. However, there are many Ukrainians who have never seen a Black person before. Their understanding, make this a little bit larger, sorry. Skipped my spot here. Their understanding of African American culture is fueled by the media and African stereotypes. You will generate lots of interest and curious stares. This is important. So these stares can make you uncomfortable and annoyed. Ukrainians' initial perception of you may be that you are from Africa. It may not. It does not help if they understand that you are an American. And the training in PST will help you consider ways that you will engage with these assumptions. Here goes the tough part, ladies and gentlemen. It is not uncommon for Ukrainians to refer to African Americans as the N-word. Volunteers of color may be called a monkey or may see children's games with blackface. Now, just putting this out here again, this is not coming from me. This is not my opinion. I have never been to Ukraine. This is coming from the Peace Corps, and they are trying to prepare Black people who may want to volunteer in Ukraine to help Ukrainians. Even the Peace Corps is giving you a heads up. Being aware of the history of dehumanization for people of African descent may help inform where this comes from. It does not justify it. It will be at your discretion to determine the intent. No matter the intent, staff recognizes the impact that hearing that word may invoke hurt and anger. If you view it as unlearned, something the person has never been exposed to, it may be an opportunity for you to educate that person. We are here to support your successful service. Okay. And these comments and images can be a huge distraction and obstacle to you. Know that Peace Corps staff is here to support and encourage you. Do not hesitate to remove yourself from such situations. You are not expected to be subjected to such treatment. You can also find support and understand from other African American Peace Corps volunteers serving in Ukraine. Let me pop out for just a second because there's more to this website. What does that tell you? What does that say to you if the Peace Corps is already letting you know what you are going to encounter as a Black person? There's more on this website about as a person of color in general. What you may encounter if you go there. What does that tell you about the environment? Now, I just explained to you that we have mainstream media, we have celebrities, we have some people who consider themselves to be left-wing commentators on TV, on YouTube, making excuses for a Nazi battalion. You literally have the same people who were saying that we need to have equal rights for everyone just a couple years ago during Bernie's campaign. The same people who were saying everyone needs to have health care. The same people who were telling you, some of them saying, yes, Black people should have reparations. The same people who were telling you, yes, public school needs to be free. Everybody needs a shot. Some of those same people are now making excuses for Nazis in Ukraine. Some of them have told you, oh, it's just a very tiny percentage of the population. Don't worry about it. But here we have the Peace Corps. This is on their website. Eric, can you put that link in the chat so people can see this themselves too if they want to? We have the Peace Corps telling you themselves. This is public information, by the way. What you will encounter if you go there. I can't make this stuff up. I can't make it up. Now I'll scroll up in this article as well. Let me just slide to the back. There's more. There's more. Possible considerations for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, ally, asexual volunteers. Let's go down. While sex acts are not criminalized, the Ukrainian LGBT community faces discrimination and civil rights abuses related to sexual orientation. Ukrainian society generally views being gay, lesbian, or bisexual as abnormal. While networks of gays and lesbians have formed in some of the larger cities, LGBTQ life is hidden from the public and kept very discreet. It goes on. It goes on. Listen to this. Volunteer voices. Transgender volunteers are recommended to not disclose their gender identity to host country nationals and inform only the country director and Peace Corps medical officer among the Peace Corps staff. So if you're LGBTQ, they're letting you know you might want to hide who you really are. What is happening here? So, do I expect every country to be the way that the United States is? No, I don't. But this is to prove a point for the people in media who are pretending like everyone there is innocent and it's Russia that's bad. They're the bad people. And I told you from the beginning, there is no good side on this. All three, the United States, Ukraine, and Russia, are all at fault. All of them. So to hear people on mainstream media, to hear these celebrities pretend like Everybody in Ukraine are these angels, and Russians are evil. It's laughable to me. If you pay attention to the talking points, they're really trying to get you to despise people from Russia. I've noticed it. They don't even want you to hear Russian media. RT is gone. Why is that? There's one more part I want to point out here. Let me go back in. Going further up to the top. And by the way, guys, when you have free time, definitely check out this site because I was like, what? All right, now this is just volunteers of, oh, excuse me, gender role. It will be important to absorb and understand the cultural nuances of gender roles in your host country. Gender roles in Ukraine can be difficult to understand and accept. Although men and women may receive equal pay for equal work, women are underrepresented in positions of power and often are not promoted as readily as men. These disparities and difference in treatment based on gender can present problems for volunteers in job situations. Let's go down to possible considerations for volunteers of color. Here we go. Racial and ethnic minorities in Ukraine, primarily Poles, Hungarians, Crimean Tatars, or Tatars, I hope I said that the right way. Greeks make up about 5% of the total population. Most Ukrainians have not had personal interactions with people of other races. This is important for people to know. They often assume that African American or Asian American volunteers are university students from Africa or Asia rather than Americans. Thus, these volunteers may be stopped to show identification papers more frequently than other volunteers, particularly in larger cities where they are not known. On its website, the U.S. State Department now warns prospective travelers to Ukraine of hate crimes directed at ethnic minorities. In addition, a number of international human rights groups have exposed concern with the rise in hate crimes and xenophobic activity in big cities in Ukraine. This is from a volunteer. A majority of the time, people view me with curiosity. Most people I work with love to ask me about my ancestry. They are polite and respectful. Occasionally, I'm mistaken for an Arab or African refugee, and I hear some people shouting. Most Ukrainians are embarrassed by this behavior, and I've never felt scared for my physical safety. Sharing information about my cultural background as an American of Indian descent has been a wonderful and positive experience for me in the 9 months I've lived in Ukraine. And you notice this is coming from someone who's an American of Indian descent. But you notice the volunteers' experience that I read to you from African Americans was not this way. So when people tell you that it's just a small percentage of Nazis in Ukraine and it's just the people that are associated with that battalion, I just want to remind you of what is on the Peace Corps' website. And all of you should check that out. That is a problem. That's a big problem. So after reading that to you, if you are African American and you are a Peace Corps volunteer, would you feel comfortable and safe going to Ukraine to volunteer after what I just read for you, which is on their own website? I sure wouldn't. These are things you guys need to hear this information. I'm not hearing people talk about this. Maybe more will follow. I don't know. But right now, I'm not hearing people talk about this. And by the way, this was on Twitter as well. It's kind of going around. Sebastian says worthy versus unworthy victims. Worthy victims, white people, unworthy victims, black and brown people. There you go. There you go. Super Patriot said, Sabby, if an African American goes to Ukraine, God help them. SM Domin said, that's a hard pass. Yeah, I'm not feeling it. Not feeling it. Oh, okay. Go ahead and put up the comments from Rockfin first. I'll do those. All right. Thanks so much, Quaker Anarchist, for the comment on Rockfin. I'm a returned PC volunteer. The purpose of the Peace Corps is to manipulate countries. Countries are forced to take PCVs if the country takes money from the United States. The U.S. Aid, Peace Corps, and other aid organizations make serious money for the U.S. My professor said for every $1 we put in, we get 3 back. In the Peace Corps in Nepal, we were taught all the Nepali racist slurs used for Black people and also racial slurs called for all the different caste, religions, and local countries. Not all the slurs, but I mean that there is one slur for each group of people, including slurs for Black people, white people, Indian people. This is common. These countries have leftists who are anti American. They have racism, they have hate. It isn't just Ukraine. Peace Corps has this in every country. We were suggested to say American women don't menstruate because women's menstruation rules their ability to enter kitchens, etc. I only learned about the slurs because my future husband was teaching an elderly Black American woman who is a volunteer. He was talking to her, so we all had a deep conversation on this. I don't know if anyone else learned all the slurs. Thank you so much for that, Quaker Socialist.